So welcome everyone. Labor law reform in Latin America. We'll have three presentations. We start with Eleonora, Peliza, then Eduardo, Pragmácio, Filho, and finally André, Zipperer. We already discussed the rules, so we are all good. And then I would give immediately the floor to Eleonora, who will present Trial and Error in Latin America, Premises for a Labor Policy Transformation in the Near Future. So you can start. My understanding is that you'll speak in Spanish, so puedes compartir el tiempo parte ahora.
Okay, can you see the presentation? Thank you. Well, I want to thank I'm the members of ILERA, Johanna and Lorenzo, for the opportunity. And I'm going to speak in Spanish because I not feel quite comfortable with my English, my pronunciation and a lot of stuff. I hope I will improve it in a short time. Okay. El tema es Latinoamérica, prueba y error, las reformas laborales, la problemática y el mercado laboral y algunas premisas para su transformación y para su corrección. Estamos hablando de cuáles son los desafíos que tiene que abordar la región en materia de empleo, de trabajo, de legislación, porque de hecho en los últimos 30 años ha habido muchas reformas en materia laboral y de política de empleo, pero esas reformas, si bien han tenido buenas intenciones, todas ellas puede decirse en términos generales que han fracasado en virtud de la realidad sociolaboral que vive la región, siendo una de las regiones más desiguales del mundo, es decir, aquella donde hay mayor distancia entre el que más tiene y el menos tiene, el que más gana o menos gana. Un tercio de los latinoamericanos vive con menos de $4 al día, estos son 260 millones de personas. La OIT ha dejado claro en todos esos informes que esa desigualdad y la pobreza ha demostrado ser inflexible, es decir, el que nace pobre tiene muchas probabilidades de morir en esas mismas circunstancias, no hay movilidad social, y cuando el país crece, o en términos macroeconómicos ha habido buenos resultados, como por ejemplo podemos citar esto en distintas épocas, pero actualmente Perú, Uruguay o Brasil, y en términos comparativos o macroeconómicos, supongo desde el 2017 hacia ahora, a pesar de ese crecimiento económico, no se traduce en el bienestar de sus trabajadores. Es lo que se denomina la paradoja del crecimiento sin bienestar. Si bien el país crece, ese bienestar no se refleja en las capacidades de sus habitantes. Cuando hablamos de desarrollo, ¿de qué hablamos? ¿De dónde partimos? ¿Cuál fue el comienzo y el origen de la legislación? La legislación latinoamericana abreva de un modelo continental, es decir, codificados, leyes que tienen, a diferencia de lo que ha ocurrido quizás en Europa, donde muchas conquistas sociales propugnaron el desarrollo de la legislación. En Latinoamérica esta legislación tiene mucho más que ver con el papel del Estado, es decir, el Estado el que se erigió, las naciones las que se erigieron en legisladoras, es las que promulgaron el desarrollo de esta legislación laboral, basadas en una premisa, es decir, regular el hecho social del trabajo con una premisa que es mantener la paz social, es el status quo entre el capital y el trabajo, y se dio el desarrollo de lo que se conoce, ¿no?, como el garantismo laboral, o el Estado proteccionista, ese poder, ese derecho de propiedad que tiene el trabajador basado, ¿no?, en su puesto de trabajo. El paradigma es la estabilidad, la permanencia, basado en una idea de empleo continuo, de empleo estable. Si hablamos, o sea, obviamente por el tiempo que tenemos, hacer un resumen más que nada pedagógico, si nosotros tuviésemos que describir cómo fue este periodo de desarrollo, podemos hablar desde fines del siglo XIX hasta más o menos la década del 70, comienzos y orígenes del desarrollo de la legislación laboral y la formación de ese sistema. A este periodo de formación y desarrollo, primer periodo de las relaciones laborales y de lo que es propiamente la legislación laboral, corresponde un modelo de legislación, que es el modelo garantista, proteccionista, basado en un Estado y en una conformación del mundo que obviamente ha cambiado, una economía de sustitución de las importaciones, una economía cerrada, donde aseguraba cierta asimetría con respecto a la protección. Por un lado se protegía al trabajador individualmente consolidado, pero también a los empleadores, porque competían dentro de un mismo marco, dentro de una misma igualdad, si se quiere, no había competencia externa. Esto obviamente va a cambiar, y estos mismos argumentos son los que van a ser tomados más tarde en el periodo de flexibilización laboral, como por ejemplo el protocolo de Washington, diciendo que hay leyes que son tan protectorias, tan rígidas, que afectan la competitividad y la productividad de una nación. Después podemos distinguir hacia fines de la década del 80, el hito aquí es la Constitución del Brasil del año 88, un periodo de democratización de las relaciones laborales, pero sobre todo en el marco del derecho colectivo en muchos países, no tanto en el derecho individual. Es decir, se busca, no se consigue del todo, pero se busca dejar de lado el sindicato amarillo, corporativista, el sindicato vertical, y se busca una cuestión más equitativa, donde prevalezca el principio de subsidiariedad, ¿sí? Se habla de la democratización de ciertos derechos colectivos del trabajo. Una tercera etapa, obviamente generalizando desde fines de la década del 80, década del 90, el periodo de flexibilización laboral, ¿sí? Una flexibilización que basada en precisamente el discurso de los diseños legales datan del periodo de sustitución de las importaciones, tenemos el impacto de las tecnologías, pero sobre todo tenemos el impacto de la mundialización de la economía, de la globalización, nuestros mercados para ser más competitivos y lograr resolver problemas estructurales como la pobreza, la falta de igualdad y un mercado segmentado, necesitamos flexibilizar. Entonces, barrer esas rigideces, quitar los principios de estabilidad, ¿sí? Y lograr una flexibilización de entrada, es decir, con modalidades promovidas, con algunos tipos de contrato, y la flexibilidad de salida, es decir, eliminar, por ejemplo, indemnizaciones costosas, tipos de estabilidad. Tenemos que decir que no hay un modelo solo de flexibilización laboral, y lo que se crearon, si se permite el término, son especies de Frankenstein. ¿Por qué? Porque convivían en estructura, en el corazón, el diseño legal del periodo de formación, ¿sí? Garantista, proteccionista, con un principio de estabilidad, y se le fueron haciendo determinadas reformas. El ejemplo fue, por ejemplo, en el Perú, en su momento en Venezuela en el año 97, y en la Argentina. ¿Por qué? Porque el reemplazo total de la legislación fue esporádico, no fue total. Entonces se creaban estas especies de parches que generaban contradicciones con esa legislación. Después tenemos la vista sobre todo con el abordaje que hacen los superiores tribunales de cada país, ¿sí? El abordaje del derecho del trabajo y las relaciones desde el punto de vista de los derechos humanos, ¿sí? Aquí no es como en el modelo de formación, el proteccionista, es necesario proteger al hiposuficiente, ¿sí? El trabajador, que se le pueden imponer las condiciones del negocio, sino la laboral, sino desde una óptica más amplia, la noción de trabajo decente, la noción de que tiene que haber acciones normativas y políticas que garanticen el pleno empleo, la estabilidad, un salario justo. Es la visión que tiene obviamente la Organización Internacional del Trabajo y los distintos tratados de derechos humanos. Hablamos de las reformas, entonces estamos diciendo que en el siglo pasado y en los últimos 30 años hubo grandes reformas, pero esas reformas lamentablemente no han podido resolver el problema de la desigualdad, ¿sí? Y de la pobreza, que son estructurales, ¿sí? Los diseños legales entonces, la política laboral básica de cada uno de estos países, obviamente estamos generalizando, pero es una razón común, son insuficientes. Las reformas laborales entonces y las políticas fueron ineficaces para dar solución a estos problemas estructurales y hacer frente a la coyuntura internacional. En ese sentido, Latinoamérica siempre se ve impactada, y cuando al mundo le va bien, a Latinoamérica le va un poco mejor, y cuando al mundo le va mal, a Latinoamérica le va muchísimo peor. Se calcula que el Producto Bruto Interno de la mayoría de los países en el mundo va a caer un 4%, si está hablando de un promedio casi del 9% en algunos países de nuestra región. Y se da un fenómeno que es muy interesante, es el fenómeno del trabajador pobre. ¿Qué quiere decir esto? Antes la pobreza estaba asociada al desempleo, eventualmente a la marginalidad, es decir, a la incapacidad de acceder a un empleo. Hoy por hoy, la pobreza, los trabajadores son los que son pobres, no aquellos que están excluidos de la participación en el mercado de trabajo o en la ocupación del mercado de trabajo. Son ocupados, ¿sí? En general informales, y entonces está asociado más a la precariedad y a la fragilidad laboral, es decir, a la pobreza de los ingresos, ¿sí? Déficit entre la calidad y la cantidad de empleo. Acá podemos ver rápidamente cómo también esa flexibilidad, si bien en los últimos años se ha buscado dejar sin efecto algunas de las cuestiones más negativas de los periodos de flexibilización, hay una flexibilización de hecho que muchas veces no es atendida por la legislación. En sí mismas las formas de trabajo temporal o tiempo parcial no son malas, pero muchas veces no están reguladas de manera correcta y eficiente por la codificación o los programas, y estas formas de trabajo a tiempo parcial o temporal han ido avanzando, sobre todo en los últimos 15 años. Estos son los países donde se muestra en la estadística que esas formas contractuales han ido avanzando por sobre el empleo asalariado, el formal y el total. Traigo un ejemplo de mi país. Hoy por hoy en la Argentina, el 60% de los trabajadores, ¿sí?, de la fuerza ocupacional tiene problemas de empleo. Sea que están desempleados, es decir, el acceso a participar en el mercado de trabajo, sean que tienen empleos precarios, es decir, que no están correctamente registrados, o que no tienen las prestaciones o acceso a prestaciones de la seguridad social, o bien el subempleo inestable, es decir, estamos hablando casi del 60% de la fuerza laboral en la Argentina. ¿Qué es este empleo inestable? Son aquellos trabajos temporarios, subempleo, es decir, trabajo cierta cantidad de horas, pero no las horas que necesito para mi subsistencia, son los beneficiarios de programas de empleo con contraprestación, lo que se conoce como changas, y decimos que la informalidad en Latinoamérica tiene cara de joven y tiene cara de mujer. Si uno lo observa en el sector formal de empresas, son 2 hombres por cada mujer, y en el sector de informalidad es 1 a 1. ¿Qué quiere decir? Que las mujeres, obviamente el mercado, o sea, la puerta de acceso al mercado de trabajo, tanto para los jóvenes como para las mujeres, es el mercado informal. Y los últimos indicadores en los últimos años han dado cuenta que esta subocupación, que es inestable, se ha duplicado. Fíjense los datos de 2013 y 2019, donde prácticamente estos datos se han duplicado, del 9,7 al 18,3%. Entonces, ¿qué estamos viendo? Que en Latinoamérica tiene ciertos desafíos. Por un lado, se está creando menos empleo. La cantidad de empleo, es decir, es menor. Hay menor tasa de participación, de ocupación, y hay desempleo. Ahora vamos a ver cómo. La otra problemática es la informalidad laboral, ¿sí?, que genera, obviamente, subocupación y fragilidad. El problema no es la cantidad del empleo, sino el problema es la calidad del empleo, ¿no? Y la eficacia de los diseños legales o las políticas públicas que llevan a cabo cada una de estas naciones, cada uno de nuestros estados, ¿sí? La distancia entre la norma y la realidad, la distancia entre lo que la norma quiere, persigue, y la política laboral y la realidad, los resultados. Con respecto a la cantidad de empleo, la ocupación urbana viene bajando hace ya más de 5 años, ¿sí? Hoy es del 56,8%. ¿Qué quiere decir esto? Que, por ejemplo, en el 2019, aproximadamente 1 millón de personas en nuestra región ha dejado de conseguir empleo. Y si nosotros dejamos de tener en cuenta la importante incidencia que tienen países como México y Brasil por su capacidad productiva y su fuerza laboral, los parámetros que voy a mostrar en la siguiente filmina se verían agravados, es decir, baja la tasa de ocupación y sube la tasa de desocupación. Entonces acá vemos, desde el periodo, por ejemplo, 2008 a 2019, cómo ha venido bajando la tasa de participación, es decir, aquellas personas que pertenecen a la población económicamente activa que pueden acceder al mercado de trabajo, la capacidad que tiene ese mercado de trabajo, la tasa de ocupación de ocupar efectivamente a esas personas, y lo que se ve acá arriba es el porcentaje, ¿sí?, de desocupación, y esto es antes del fenómeno del COVID. Hace un rato estábamos hablando qué impacto va a tener esto obviamente en el mundo y en la región. Si dejáramos de considerar la incidencia positiva que en este momento a nivel estadístico tuvieron Brasil y México, desde el punto de vista comparativo, llegaríamos a que obviamente la tasa de ocupación y participación hubieran bajado. Entonces, lo que se observa también en estos últimos años en los trabajos de literatura es que antes la reducción del empleo, es decir, el desempleo era una consecuencia de una mayor oferta de trabajo, es decir, bajaban las tasas de desempleo porque subía la oferta de empleo. Hoy en la actualidad lo que está bajando es la participación de la fuerza laboral. Un número importante de personas está saliendo del mercado laboral, es decir, no por desinterés o porque no pueden acceder o porque no tienen la calificación para hacerlo. Entonces, hablamos de la cantidad, hablemos de la calidad, ¿sí? Esto nos lleva a la informalidad, que es las actividades de personas, las actividades de empresas que no están contempladas por la ley, o la ley no se cumple o no se fomenta su cumplimiento. Hoy por hoy, este es el porcentaje de informalidad que tiene nuestra región. El 54% es trabajo informal, el 46% solo de trabajo informal. Esto nos lleva a volver a plantearnos a quiénes se le aplica realmente los programas y la legislación laboral con este tipo de porcentajes. Incluso en el sector formal de empresas, es decir, aquellas empresas que existen para el Estado, están registradas, es alto la cantidad de trabajadores que están o viven en esa informalidad. Con respecto a los ocupados informales en el sector formal de empresas, podemos ver que dentro del sector también formal es un 46%, y la informalidad, dentro de lo que es la informalidad, tenemos trabajadores independientes, es decir, no son empresarios, son contrapropistas, y trabajadores asalariados. Lo que se está viendo en estos últimos reportes también es que baja el trabajo asalariado, no porque la gente obviamente se convierta en empresarios, sino por esa imposibilidad de acceder al mercado formal. Y otra cosa que se observa, que no es menor, es que cuando aumenta el empleo, es decir, cuando se ven las variaciones de manera positiva, es decir, baja el desempleo y aumenta el nivel de ocupación, el primer paso, la primera puerta de entrada no es el mercado formal, sino es el mercado informal, ¿sí? Es decir, cuando la ocupación y el registro crece, los trabajadores, ¿sí?, las posibilidades se ven en el sector informal de empresas. Por eso muchas veces las estadísticas hay que analizarlas con suma precaución, porque muchas veces se dice, sí, bajó el desempleo, pero ¿dónde? ¿Sí? ¿Y en qué sector? Entonces, el daño que la informalidad produce trasciende la afectación de los trabajadores. Hay una realidad, en nuestra región el sector informal absorbe un montón de trabajadores que de otro modo no tendrían acceso al mercado de trabajo. Y las empresas, y muchas veces y las personas, es un fenómeno cultural. El no querer pertenecer al sector formal, no solo por una realidad de informalidad general, porque un empleador que tiene trabajadores informales se desempeña en una economía informal, sino porque las empresas optan por no hacerlo, por la incapacidad que muchas veces tiene la justicia y la policía de trabajo en el controlar. Si no hay sanción, la noción de exit de Schumann, es decir, la gente opta por no cumplir las normas porque no ve ninguna diferencia o consecuencia en hacerlo. Entonces, si ¿existen fallas en el diseño legal o en las estrategias? ¿En qué es lo que falla? ¿Por qué? Porque nosotros podríamos decir que desde el punto de vista textual o nudo de la nula ley, nosotros no tenemos estándares laborales de menor protección, ¿sí? La mayoría de los países han ratificado los convenios fundamentales de la Organización Internacional del Trabajo y tienen desde el punto de vista de la codificación y la legislación protección. Pero en realidad hay un problema evidente de diseño institucional, a veces de cambios pendulares, como podemos ver o pudimos ver en la década del 90 y posteriores, entre cambios que responden a una cierta pulsión o necesidad económica. Lo vimos en el 2012 en México, las últimas reformas quizás en Brasil han tenido ese sentido. Obviamente hay factores externos que inciden en el grado de efectividad de la legislación, como puede ser la globalización, la economía mundial, los intereses políticos, la inserción de las nuevas tecnologías, pero lo que está claro es que afrontamos distintos desafíos, los cambios demográficos. Latinoamérica es una de las regiones que más rápido crece en el mundo, la dificultad de los empleos, de crear empleos de calidad, sistemas educativos que no están preparados para el futuro, son obsoletos, y eso complica la transición de la escuela al trabajo, el impacto de esas nuevas tecnologías también, la baja o la nula protección y el incumplimiento de la legislación laboral, es decir, la falta de enforcement, es decir, la capacidad que tiene el Estado de hacer cumplir la ley, debilidad en la policía de trabajo, una justicia tardía e inefectiva, y la menor sindicación. Eso es, si bien es un fenómeno mundial, muchas veces los sindicatos, ustedes piensen que los sindicatos sindicalizan, obviamente valga la redundancia, a las personas que están en el sector formal de empresas, aquellos que están registrados. Hay un montón de trabajadores que hoy por hoy, esa fuerza laboral no está representada de manera directa por los sindicatos. Entonces, hay errores, ¿sí? Y fallan las estrategias. Hay políticas que no son integrales, con una visión sesgada. Muchos diseños legales parecen ideados y muchas políticas laborales parecen diseñadas para funcionar solamente en épocas de cierta bonanza económica, y la verdad que los fines son más bien paliativos, no hay un abordaje global del mercado de trabajo o de la problemática que se ve. La inspección de justicia y el trabajo, que es la encargada de detectar y sancionar ante una determinada norma laboral, no se hace, no lo realiza con eficacia, la justicia es lenta, y si es lenta obviamente es ineficaz, y hay una política educativa que debe ser central en todo país, ausente o ineficaz. Acá les puedo mostrar la cantidad, ¿sí?, de programas. Hoy, en la actualidad, hay más de 190 programas en nuestra región de inserción y políticas de empleo, sea para mujeres, para jóvenes, capacitación. Son todos ellos muy interesantes, pero lucen cuasi descoordinados, ¿sí? Entonces,
Eleonora, es el momento, ¿no? Como 1 o 2 minutos tienes.
ok. A pesar de estas innovaciones y estas intenciones, hay una relación directa entre la calidad y la cantidad de los puestos de trabajo, con el diseño de las instituciones. El diseño legal va a repercutir en el éxito o el fracaso del empleo. Entonces, ¿qué proponemos? Proponemos cambiar la lógica, la inversión, centrarnos sobre la inversión del capital humano, la política educativa, para que sea una garantía de empleabilidad, con políticas más individuales, garantías de protección social que no protejan tanto el puesto de trabajo, sino el trabajador que lo ocupa, mejorar la calidad de las instituciones, creo que ahí está, ¿sí? La flexibilidad con protección, la capacidad de adaptarse al mercado, porque puede haber leyes que la intención sean muy buenas, pero si protegen a menos del 40% de los trabajadores no tiene sentido. Como para terminar, un cierto mensaje de esperanza. Latinoamérica somos habitantes de 3 siglos de manera simultánea, lo vemos en nuestros países. Por un lado, el siglo XIX, porque tenemos una economía con escaso valor agregado que nos sumerge en un 30% de la pobreza. Del siglo XX, porque hay ciertos incipientes enclaves industriales que tienen resiliencia, tenemos capacidad de resistencia. Y del siglo XXI, porque hay sectores con innovaciones pujantes que se pueden insertar exitosamente en el mundo. Entonces, para finalizar, no basta que un país crezca o que incorpore tecnología, sino que es necesario incorporar el crecimiento y modernidad que trasunten todos los trabajadores. No basta con tener trabajo, sino que tiene que ser de calidad para mejorar la cuestión. La verdadera justicia social, obviamente, demanda tiempo y cambios que son estructurales, un enfoque global. Y bien, los paradigmas sociales y jurídicos pueden mutar, pero los fundamentos axiológicos no. Los hombres necesitados no son libres. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias. Muy interesante. Como os hemos dicho, we said the discussion will be at the end, so that everybody can first present their work. So now it's time for me to let the floor to Eduardo, right? Who's going to talk about labor law in crisis, the case of recent labor law changes in Brazil. The floor is yours.
Virginia, you'd like to talk first?
Yeah, so we'll share our time and I will start. And
so I need to give you the 10 minutes precise so that it's halfway. So I stop you at 10 minutes, okay?
You let me know.
Okay.
Eleonora, congratulations for a wonderful talk. You made our job much easier because you explained everything already. And I will point out one of the aspects of our recent labor law reforms, and especially concerning the destruction of what I call institutional channels for social dialogue. So there are many things to talk about the 2017 labor law reform in Brazil, but one aspect I want to emphasize is the change on 2 main elements of our trade union representation and collective bargaining. The first one, the change in the financing of the trade unions with the end of the mandatory character of the trade union fee. And in fact, what we have now is a right to work regime where the trade union represents a whole category, but is not able to charge trade union fees from workers who are not associated to the trade union. This compulsory trade union fee was much criticized by the doctrine, by even some trade unions. But in fact, what happened is that this change, without any type of time for the trade unions itself, reduced in average 90% of their financial resources. So this is a fact. In a time where they, go through a crisis of representativeness, and there is a need for them to be more present because of the change in the system itself, they all of a sudden lost a big chunk of their finances. The second point I want to make is the change in the character of collective bargaining. The 2017 reform changed the way individual employment rights and collective bargaining related in Brazil. So the law has included in our kind of labor code, the CLT, a general clause that allows collective bargaining to reduce or withdraw most of individual labor rights. And about this, the ILO Committee of Experts already has decided that this type of general clause goes against the meaning of what it is collective bargaining, in accordance to Convention 198, 155, that collective bargaining is a process for the improvement of the social condition of workers, and that it's in this sense, it's acceptable in a system to have some specific clauses that allow for collective bargaining to reduce rights, but not to allow collective bargaining in general to reduce or withdraw rights, because then collective bargaining becomes something else. This was, I think, in my view, one of the deepest change in the system. In a way, we can say it's not only flexibilization, but in fact, deregulation, because the CLT is not anymore the minimum floor for rights. And the government itself has admitted this in their defense, in the Committee on the Application of Standards in the ILO conference, saying that no, now the minimal floor in Brazil is Article 7 of the Constitution. My point is, first, that, well, it's very complicated, but because in a way, collective bargaining is not doing what it's supposed to do, and individual labor law is not doing what it's supposed to do, to be this minimal floor. And I think that was really decided and discussed in the reform. And that's my point. It was a very deep change, and there was a lack of transparency, dialogue. And that is a scene of origin of this reform, in my view. Then we go on to to our current crisis. So we could also make a chronological line of the crisis with the COVID crisis and the emergency measures taken by the government. And one of them was the possibility to reduce hours and wages to avoid unemployment. Okay, great. But this was supposed to be done without collective negotiation, collective bargaining. Could be through direct negotiation between employer and employee. Even though the Constitution, who is supposed to be now the only minimal floor, says that to reduce wages, the employer needs to negotiate with the trade union. The Supreme Court decided that because of the crisis, this would not be necessary. For many reasons, in my view, that are not like constitutional. Like the trade union would have no structure to have this type of bargaining right now. The point is that the constitutional rule, of course, it's talking about a situation of crisis. But making my point on this, there was another step through this view of labor law, not as a result of social dialogue between the social partners and not recognizing the trade union and collective bargaining as an optimal way to build labor law. So I think we are in a very dangerous path here, because for more than 90 years, we had a trade union system which was corporatist, not promoting representativeness, and there was always many tries to reform this system. But now, instead of trying to build a system based on democracy, dialogue, and representativeness, we are kind of moving away from this. My point, thinking about labor law reform in Brazil, is that we should try to refound labor law, having in mind democracy and inclusion. And I could not agree more with Eleonora. To have a labor law that does not cover 50% of the workers because they are in this place called informality, that is like a justification for labor law not to look at them, it doesn't make sense. Especially in South America or Latin America, where these workers were always there. It's not that they arrived with Uber. We always had informal workers, domestic workers, workers on the streets, and labor law has always excluded them. So to be truly inclusive, we have to find ways, regulations, policies to protect these workers. And maybe the solution is right here. So I'm here because I'm in Brazil, not in Canada. Not transplanting regulation and solutions from Europe, from North America, but we should think ourselves based on our reality and our needs. And one need is inclusion. I think it doesn't make sense for labor law to exclude these workers, and informality is no justification not to protect. But how is this protection? Is the real question. How do we answer this question? With transparency, democracy, and with dialogue. And in this dialogue, the trade unions, representative trade unions, are key actors. So we cannot exclude them, saying, no, that's too much work, we don't have time, they are not ready. No, the ILO has published a report talking about the foundations for policies to fight against the problems that came with the COVID pandemic. And one of these foundations is social dialogue. With social dialogue, we could arrive to more creative answers and more effective answers. And that's unfortunately not the way that we chose in Brazil. So I'm right on time. And I will leave more time to Eduardo. Thank you very much.
Alessandro,
Yes.
Eduardo just WhatsApped me and saying that his net he's off, but he's saying that he's coming back. He's not gonna miss that. I'm already at Toronto, as you can see, Michael. I'm already at Toronto now.
I see. So your suggestion is that we wait, or
just yeah. My net is off. Tell the people there I'm coming back.
Anna, the question is whether his intervention was supposed to follow up straight from your, or it can be somehow delayed, because in that case we could have.
It can be delayed, yes, because initially we had a round table with many Brazilian professors who, if everything that happened did not happen. So it was just the two of us. That's why we are combined. So I think André can talk now.
Exactly, he could talk, and then the problem is solved, hopefully, and then we go back to to...
Andre, you can also let him know that if he needs a dial-in number, we can send that to him and he can call in from using his phone.
I will tell him, okay?
So we can use the chat for that, perhaps, Michael, if you can write the phone in case and in the chat or something.
Yeah, I will put that in the chat right now for Brazil.
Perfect. Okay, so in this case, slide... Oh, came back.
It's my internet isn't stable here.
Don't worry, don't worry. You have your full 10 minutes and 30 seconds actually, because Anna was shorter than her lock.
I have to restart my presentation.
Sure.
So,
It's paused, don't worry. It's like basketball, it's net time. It's not...
Okay, so I got the, can I speak now?
Yes.
You may.
Okay, thank you very much. First, I would like to apologize because of my English is not so good. So I prepared some slides. I'll be in a rush. I got only 10 minutes or less. I would like to share with you my presentation. Everybody seen it? Let's see. Yeah. All right.
Perfect.
So my presentation is divided in 4 parts. I would like to focus on the third part that Virginia Ana Gomes told us. It's our crisis of representativeness. We have, like all countries in Latin America, a very strong based on corporatist ideas. So our CLT since 1943 is based on these ideas, these fascist ideas. So our union structure, our organization is very, very, very based on these ideas. So I'll jump this part. So in 1988, our constitution adopted the freedom of organization, but not in a fully way. So now we have the strike as a fundamental right, but still remains the unicity. Only one union can represent one category, so we are not free to join to organize a union. So remained these ideas from the corporatist ideas. So we have this reform in 2017, our labor reform. It was not a really deep reform, but there was a big impact on our collective organization, in our union organization. And I would like to focus on these 3 big changes. One of them, Anna told us, it's about the money, the fees, the contribution to the union. Now it's not compulsory anymore. So how can the unions survive in these times? How can they survive? So they were receiving money, easy money, but now they're kind of broke. And then there is this new role of collective bargaining, and I disagree of Ana Gomes in some point, because I think these flexibilities that the new role of collective agreements are now in our legislation. So this is like they are sharing the money. At that time, well, R$1 was $3.5. Now it's like $5. We have 15,000 unions in Brazil, more than that, and they receive like $1 billion with compulsory money, and now they are not receiving this money anymore. So the unions, they are broke. Only the strong unions are surviving at this time. One new reform was the workplace representativeness in the workplace. It's called representação nos locais de trabalho. This is a new idea, and I think it will compete with the union. But this new workplace representation is not unionized. There is not a union natural. And then this new role of collective bargaining in this new reality. I think this is a good idea. I disagree with Anna because I think these flexibilities can adapt to new realities, to who is negotiating, where, and how. I think this new rule of collective bargaining in Brazil it was a good reform. So I got this problem: how to improve collective bargaining in those archaic structure, because we have still the corporatist structure with new ideas, but the body, sorry, my English, it's difficult to think in English. Then I can talk in Portuguese. Let me see. I'll try to talk in Portuguese because I think it will be recorded, then we can translate it. A minha ideia é o seguinte: nós temos uma estrutura antiga com novas ideias. O edifício, a estrutura sindical brasileira, ela está completamente ruída, porque a gente vive ainda com as ideias do passado, tenta uma nova ideia no futuro, mas essas ideias né, esse edifício está ruindo. É preciso fazer uma ampla reforma trabalhista para valorizar a representatividade sindical e adotar os princípios da liberdade sindical em sua plenitude, conforme a OIT prega. Essa é a minha ideia. So I have this I have this conclusion. I think the weakening of trade union representation is not in the interest of workers or companies, much less of the democratic rule of law. The stability of the social order also depends on the capability of trade union organization to express the diversity of the interests of their members. So we have to include the informals, we have to include domestic workers, we have to include platform workers, as André is trying to talk in a few minutes to us. So I think the reform was not a great reform. We need to move forward in a deep reform of our union organization. So sorry for my English. My English is not so good. Perhaps I don't know if Michael or Alessandro allowed us to speak in Portuguese because in the first time we are allowed to speak in Portuguese. I think I can develop better ideas. Thank you very much.
Obrigado, obrigado. Muito bem.
Obrigado.
The only two words I know in Portuguese, actually.
Right.
I'm better off in Spanish. But for sure, I mean, I guess, you know, this is an international conference. International conference means that, you know, the contributions are accepted in many different languages as well. So for the discussion part, I think you should be free to speak the language that suits you most, for sure.
Thank you.
And so now we go to our last presenter for the session, which is André Zipperer. And he will present on the need for a hybrid tutelage of crowd work according to Brazilian labor law. So,
yeah, my first question is, I'm doing a lot of lives at virtual, and always the first question is, can you hear me right? Can you see me right? So good, okay. My name is André Zipperer, I'm from Curitiba, I'm from Brazil. I'm a professional, PhD, and a bunch of other things. I put Toronto here on my background so I can feel like a Canadian here right now. So like I'm Canada. It's pretty cold here. It's kind of weird. If I got my internet connection unstable now, if I got some clicks or something, you just please tell me so I can speak again. So thanks everyone. Muchas gracias a todos. And thanks everyone. I'll talk about crowd work. I have a book. I wrote a book about this subject, intermediation of work via platform, digital platform, and I'll share my you may so you can see my slide, right? It's okay.
Not
no
yet. You need to share screen. So it's a green button
Sure.
at the bottom.
Share. Okay. Now is
Now,
it right?
Yep.
Okay. Eduardo probably told everybody that his slides are not so good, just to make me feel ashamed, because his slides were really, really good, and mine is all white, but I can explain everything I wanted to say. So I have all the 20 minutes all for me. I don't share. And so that's me. I'm André from Brazil. Oh my God, my goodness. Yeah. I want to talk a few words about employment law in Brazil before, so you guys from overseas can understand what I'm talking about. Employment law in Brazil is very detailed and very inflexible. Only works are hired and employees are protected by Brazilian labor code. So we have this binary situation, the same as they have like in France and a couple of other countries. So it's that's the problem. That's binary because of just like our friend from Argentina, Eleonora just said. He just said that in Brazil, only 35% of the whole workers of the country, only 35% are under the umbrella of the protection of the labor code, and 65% are off the umbrella of those protections. So that's because of 35%, the binary thinking, the binary situation makes the only the subordinated workers protected, and all the other 65%. So I was doing a live yesterday, and the other professor that was with me, they said, we cannot say that this is the typical worker or the atypical worker, because the typical worker are less than 50%. So there is no meaning of, there's no point of saying that this is a typical work. Generally employing are hired by undetermined period contracts. They can be engaged on a fixed term basis or either temporary or fixed. Each are different concepts in the Brazilian law. A fixed term no longer than 2 years. So we have in Brazil employees, which is the around 35% of the all workers, independent contractors, and outsourced contractors. All Brazilian labor law are regulated by consolidation of labor law or labor code, which is a decree of 1953 that has a much hard reform, still that reform that Eduardo told us, which took place in 1917. So we had around like 70 years, we had the same law regulating all kind of contracts, all kind of labor contracts, independent of them. Even now the platform contracts, we cannot be really old regulations. Deployment status in Brazil, which is in Article 3 of the Labor Code, is pretty much based on 4 requirements. It's individual who personally renders services. He must render this service personally on a regular basis to an employer. I mean, the work has been habitual. In exchange of some compensation, I mean salary, under the direction of someone, which means subordination. Like the main stone of all this employment status is the subordination, is the main requirement to establish an employment relationship. The types of subordination is subjective. We can, the writers, the professors, they say that the types of subordinations can be interpreted: subjective, objective, and structural. Subjective is when you work under directions of someone else. The way the employer sets to the employer activities as well as goals. The objective subordination is the regulation of a coordination or integrative or collaborative. And the structural is the insertion of the workers in the dynamics of the employer. Because of that, because they can, the professors and can actually see this new kind of labor relation, that I can, in advance, I can say that I don't think either independent contractor or subordinated workers, I can say that it's a third type, much based on the Italian labor code, on the procedure code, which I can say it's coordinated, digital coordinated worker is what I say, what I defend on my PhD thesis, which is pretty much on the book. This concept no longer enough to understand the subordination according to the newest technologies. They say it's algorithmic subordination. I can't say that. I can't say algorithmic subordination because there is no subordination by the algorithm. Algorithm for me just a tool that someone, some real people can use it as to control some other work. The employment contracts has some mandatory rights. They're not optional. I can say some examples. The wages that I pay monthly around today is around $2,100 minimum. This is the minimum wage. Vacation is 30 calendar days, can be split in 3 periods. We have a vacation bonus, which is equivalent about a third of the salary, and a third month salary, which we call the Christmas bonus, which is pretty much payable on December. Of course, all this stuff got all messed up because we have the crisis legislation right now, and the government all messed up all this stuff. So this vacation bonus you can pay like next year or in the end of the year, and they all messed up all these regulations because of this crisis, the COVID crisis. And as well as if you dismiss the people, you have the notice of termination. Because you dismiss the people without a good cause or an unfair dismissal, as you guys call on Europe or in United States, it's equivalent. It's like a fee that they have a pay equivalent of a 30-day salary. Okay, so we have a lot of mandatory rights: working time, 8 hours a day, and employment compensation fund, which is equivalent to 8% of the salary in a blocked bank account in the name of each employer. This is in addition to the salary, right? So it's which pretty much like 20% of the salary. So besides that, we also have meal ticket, transportation vouchers, termination vouchers, fine, and health hazard allowance and risk premium. What I can say is, what I'm trying to say to you is that it's expensive to hire someone in Brazil. That's pretty much because we have so few people under the umbrella of the protection. It's expensive to hire someone in Brazil. That's why platform economy in Brazil is growing so much. The transportation apps started in Brazil in 2014, and the delivery apps started in Brazil in 2017. We have our plumbers, domestic service, and general home service. But it's a pretty new situation here in Brazil. We don't have any online crowdsourcing, micro tasks like Amazon Mechanical Turk. We don't have in Brazil. That's because Brazil is pretty much a monolingual country. I mean, people like that speak English like me and Eduardo and Ana is like only a few people, not many people, unfortunately. And what I can say is that the platform economy in Brazil, for Uber, the biggest city that they have more people working for them in the world is São Paulo. São Paulo, the operation of Uber in São Paulo is twice as big as the second place in the world. So there is the 6 million people, around 6 million people working in the platform economy here in Brazil. And like last year were 4 million people. Because of the COVID crisis, we have 6 million people. This is 10%, the equivalent of 10% of all the people that have a subordinated employee here in Brazil. My critics about all the people that use like the Uberization term, Uberization, I think this reduces a lot of the study of this kind of a subject. We have I researched more than 100 types of platforms, and there is 100 types of business models, pretty much different, even within the same platform, within the same company, we have a different business model. So to be based, so I created a concept of a crowd worker. So we can make a study upon this unique concept to be based on a possible unique model in order to achieve some specific scientific standards on the subject. I identified four requirements to create this concept of a crowd worker. It's first of them, there's pretty much, despite of being so heterogeneous, despite of being so different among all them, right? Thank you so much. Despite of being so different between all of them, we can identify four requirements that's pretty much the same for them. They have an online triangular relationship before the platform, the worker, and the applicants, which are the platform customers. This is the first requirement. Second requirement, the direct connections between the requester and the crowd worker online via the platform, and the digital platform must be like as a connection system between them, between the crowd worker and the requester of the service. Third requirement, human and individual work. I say that because there are some companies that can hire, especially on like Amazon Mechanical Turk. And the fourth requirements are discontinuity of the relation promoted by the platform. The relationship between the requester, the third part, and the crowd worker is short and limited to the period of contract activity. So this is my concept. I don't study like a specific company or the delivery app. My study is not based on the delivery app, on the transportation app. I created a concept and I work upon it. Is an individual worker inserted on an undefined group of people connected to the same virtual platform in a triangular work relation intermediated online by this platform that aims at direct contact between the worker and the work requester, and this relationship being must be onerous, short, and discontinuous, carried out with a personal or virtual contact. I know, like Adrian Todolicenes from Spain, he says that we have online crowdsourcing and offline crowdsourcing. So I use pretty much the same division. Crowdsourcing, for my conclusion, is not an employee and also not an independent contractor. I'm a critic of this binary vision of this stuff. It's not subordinated, it's not autonomous. It's a third type that I call, that I catch from the Italian legislation, which pretty much the coordinated digital, let me come back here, coordinated digital worker is, I use the concept, is a coordination. That's the main problem. The employee gets it all, and the independent contractor and all the other stuff, especially the one that is located on the gray zone, that the gray zone that is, you can identify some kind of so subordination on this regulation, but not all of them. And this makes that a high number of workers without any protection. This is because of the pretty old and outdated legislation we have here, and we have pretty much all the countries. We have a friend from Argentina, Eleonora, and I read the Argentinian project of law of something about platform for workers to protect the platform workers, and there is like a big problem on that, because they protect, it's like 25 pages, very complex, very difficult legislation, very difficult legislation. But the point is, they don't just protect the delivery apps, and we have more than 100 of others. And that's the main problem of that. And that's the main problem of like the Portuguese and all of the others. So that's why I'm a pretty hard critic of the word Uberization, because it reduces a lot all the study about that. So, and there is another point, that is a legal incompatibilities of the work model of crowd work with the rights of the subordinated worker. When you kind of force, you know that toy, the children toy, that you have the rounded part and you have the square hole, and you kind of try to fit the round part on the square hole, and you like punch it. They don't fit. They don't fit. You can mirror on this old legislation these new kind of relations. Like the main one I always used to say is the work control. Right? Thank you so much. Disconnect, registered, unregistered, and can be on work and can be off work. What do we consider for what can we consider to as a principle to regulate this kind of labor relations? What can we consider? Is only the time on work timer, off work timer, online time, or not online time, or maybe someone that connects only 3 days a week, only 4 days a week, only 2 hours for 2 days a week, and because of that, we cannot establish them like a minimum salary. It's hard to establish a vacation time. We have probably a problem with work environment laws, because we cannot control the work environment. The work environment is far away from the platform environment. Wage equalization, and there is some other point, that is the need for the portability of the reputation. So we have now what we call the digital reputation, and this is a pretty problem. Of course, in Europe we have the GR general regulation data, GRDP. Now we have we have some GRDP lookalike here in Brazil, LGPD, and this is trying to regulate this data protection of the worker and the users of the platform. And there is another of other problems if we don't have the specific legislation on that. We have lots of unprotected workers, endless litigation, and especially on California, the AB5, the Amendment Bill 5. Now we have like endless litigation that the Silicon Valley is in California. They don't want the Bill 5 over there. And legal entity, these platforms, they don't want to put money on the business, on the country that have the legal uncertainty, and the lack of collective protection. Thank you so much. This is pretty much what I studied, which I wrote on a book. My name is André Zipperer. I'm from Curitiba. I'm from Brazil. People who want to talk more with me can follow me on Instagram, André Zipperer. I'm over there. And I return to Alessandro. Muchas gracias, Alessandro.
Thank you, Andre. Thank you for being in perfect time. So this closed the first part of our session, which was the individual presentation. And now we are here to discuss what we heard. So we have at least 4 people who didn't have the chance yet to express their own opinion about what they heard. So I guess I would invite either people in the crowd to present their reflection or questions to the speakers, or the speakers to interact on each other's presentation. And as I said, this can be done in any language you might want to use. So let me open the floor. The idea is just we are so few that there is no need, to follow all the Michael suggestion or raise a hand with the Zoom, etc. You just, I guess, can ask to be. Can they unmute themselves automatically?
You do have the ability to unmute yourself. Yeah. Okay,
so everybody can unmute themselves and just intervene. I think we saw 3 very interesting presentations. So one was certainly, we went to the larger, picture, from history, many countries, to a specific focus on this 2017 reform to Brazil, to a further particular focus, which is this crowd work in the 3rd presentation. So there's a lot of things that could be discussed. I would like to let the people in the audience go first, but if nobody does, then I'll throw out three ideas, one for each paper. So then you'll say. So in terms of the first presentation to Elisa, perhaps one thing I would ask is this. So as economists, we always like to look at phenomena in a fairly aggregate way. So, we look at these big numbers, right, which are statistics coming from aggregate sources, right? And so a question perhaps is whether within the aggregate is hidden a lot of heterogeneity. And so for which, the tone sometimes when we speak about labor and the success of policies in developing countries has a negative tone or a pessimistic tone, right? We didn't manage to get to where we should have, etc. And so my question is always whether there are examples instead of positive stories, right? That could be also of help and of testimony for the larger audiences. To the second presenters, I would ask, given that I'm not a very big expert, if you could give us a little bit more of background and perspective. So like my understanding is Brazil has been a political earthquake a lot, right, in the recent times, right? You have all the presidents who are in jail, essentially. Like, so the question I had for you was 2017 labor law reform. So this is not under the current president, this is under the previous president. And my understanding is that now there was a big change, like the one in the US, essentially, right? So does this mean that you know, the perspective for these changes are short-lived because the current president will change everything again, or this spirit of the new reform is pretty much in line with also the new administration? What can we expect? You know? So we're always used to talk about Trump here, so now I guess you can do the same for Brazil. The third question I had for André is a very simple question. So as you said, it's very interesting, you know, you don't limit to Uber. My random observation of Uber in Canada is that, let's say, a lot of immigrants can have an immediate job with that. And the second observation is that I found people, because I use Uber a lot, and I talk to people, and I found people that basically say, I couldn't stand anymore having a boss. And so they said, that's why Uber really makes my thing. So if you have any thoughts on that. So this was my 3 questions, but you know, just to start a conversation.
Eleonora, sound.
No quise dar una versión negativa o todo negativo sobre la realidad en general. Lo que pasa es que, al contrario, fue objetiva y con las mejores de las intenciones. Hubo experiencias positivas que pueden tomarse en algunos años en Argentina sobre algunos programas de inserción laboral, pero quizás en un contexto foráneo no se entiende tan bien la diferencia entre desarrollar una política laboral y cubrir problemas como un incendio. Nosotros apagamos incendios, tenemos políticas que buscan cubrir problemas, pero que no ven the whole picture. Ejemplo, en Brasil, en la época de Cardoso, y después Lula receptó eso, estaba Bolsa de Trabajo, los programas de inserción jóvenes. En Argentina tenemos Argentina Trabaja, me refiero a la inserción de los más jóvenes. Argentina Trabaja son todos programas que tienen buenas intenciones, éxitos circunstanciales, pero que no solucionan el problema real de la inserción laboral. Sí, lo mismo a nivel legislativo. Yo puedo tener una ley de espíritu corporativo, de representación sindical, pero si yo, me refiero a la efectividad de toda la normativa que estamos viendo, después podemos cuestionar la filosofía de esa normativa, si es más flexibilizadora, si es, como dijo Ana, yo coincido, más que flexibilización es desregular. Lo que no está regulado no existe. Es decir, lo saco de la protección. Va mucho más allá de flexibilizar y esconder algo, ¿no? Entonces, lo que no está regulado no existe. Y el problema que nosotros, o sea, que lo que yo traté de puntualizar, es que muchas veces esa desregulación tiene consecuencias concretas y no una visión global del problema. Si yo tengo más un tercio de la población en la pobreza y tengo solo el 40 o el 30% de los trabajadores, el papel todo se relativiza. El papel del sindicato, aunque sea corporativo, sea fuerte o haya 15.000 sindicatos, también es relativo, porque ¿a qué porción de la real fuerza laboral están representando? ¿Qué efectividad puede tener? En Argentina hoy por hoy es el 30%, pero es el 30% del 36% de los que están registrados. Hay una masa de gente que trabaja, que son vulnerables, que no están representados. Entonces, lo que yo veo es, lo que decía, la distancia entre lo que quiere la norma y lo que hay en realidad, y no hay una visión estructural o global. Lo describió muy bien André, tenemos proyectos de ley, ahora tenemos un proyecto que tiene media sanción sobre teletrabajo, o trabajo obviamente remoto, o los proyectos que hay para regular plataformas. Pero muchas veces me parece que es una realidad, no sé, mis amigos de Brasil, los amigos de Brasil que dirán, es como que pretendemos ponerle puerta al campo, o sea, regular cuestiones y con cabezas antiguas. No me refiero ni a la flexicurity, ni a la no, me refiero a cuestiones concretas para adaptarlo a nuestra realidad, no es una visión totalmente negativa. El Estado no está ausente, lo que digo es que está presente, pero quizás no de una manera tan eficaz. tenemos un montón de reformas laborales que buscan cosas, tienen buenas intenciones, pero como decimos acá, quizás el camino al infierno también está plagado de buenas intenciones. Y si fuera positivo, no tendríamos los resultados que tenemos, más allá de la coyuntura económica, ¿no? Más allá de lo circunstancial, porque yo hablo de mi país ahora, nosotros estamos acostumbrados a vivir en crisis. O sea, una más. Es como los infiernos del Dante, muchas veces sentimos que vamos un anillo más. Y nos vamos adaptando. Tenemos como la resistencia de las cucarachas, pero con un espíritu, lo digo en serio, con un espíritu, se entiende, positivo. Entonces, mi cuestionamiento es la distancia entre lo que quiere la norma y lo que hay en la realidad. Y que se da en un contexto complicado.
Okay, so I will start and then Eduardo can also answer. Yeah, I think the current government is on the same beat from the last one. And now everything has stopped, is on hold. But probably before the COVID pandemic, the expectation was to have a trade union reform. But what trade union reform, we do not know. In my feeling, if it's in accordance with the general line of the government, would be like a pluralist trade union system. And that would be a big change from the system we have right now. My concern is not even if it's a pluralist type or like more similar with what you have in Canada, but the idea is that the trade union as an institution, I'm not talking of trade union A, B, and C, but the trade union as an institution and collective bargaining as an institution and a fundamental right are going to be effectively promoted and guaranteed. Because I don't think that the idea that we just do not regulate and let the partners negotiate that it will happen. It has proven that it doesn't happen like this. For example, in Brazil, we do not have a system of protection against anti-trade union conduct. The recognition of the good faith in these collective bargains to set and to effectively negotiate. And I know that in Canada you have, and if we compare, for example, in US and Canada, theoretically you have the same system, but it's totally different, specifically because in Canada there is the recognition of some protection to the right to negotiate and freedom of association. So that's where I think the central question for me will be. Eduardo?
Try to talk in Portuguese better. A grande ideia aqui é o seguinte, a reforma de 2017 foi num governo, esse governo é mais liberal do que o governo anterior. Esse governo atual, ele é desregulador. A ideia é de a gente fazer uma grande reforma sindical, da estrutura sindical, mas uma reforma concertada, de concertação social, de um grande diálogo social, que eu não sei se neste governo isso vai ser possível, né? Mas assim, os atores sociais estão se envolvendo para repensar o papel do sindicato, porque os sindicatos hoje no Brasil, eles estão sem o dinheiro, sem arrecadar, e eles estão sem o diálogo com a sua base. Os sindicatos eles estão sofrendo uma grande crise de representatividade. E essa crise, ela é sobretudo porque hoje talvez, né, não se precise da mediação do sindicato. Então, o sindicato ele compete, de certa forma, com coletivos sociais, ele compete com a igreja, compete com o movimento LGBT, compete com o movimento ambiental. Então, antes que o sindicato ele era o único caminho à voz dos reclames sociais, hoje o sindicato ele se pulveriza, né? Então, assim, o sindicato ele precisa se reinventar e encontrar um caminho, uma voz com a sua base. Eu sou um otimista e eu acho que os governos passam e as ideias ficam, mas a ideia era de fazer uma grande concertação social, um grande diálogo social e valorizar a negociação. Então, eu discordo de um lado do que a Ana tinha falado a respeito do papel da negociação coletiva, que poderia flexibilizar. Eu acho que a negociação coletiva ela deixa muito mais plástica, muito mais flexível a atuação e a regulação das relações sociais laborais. Obviamente, a gente precisa estabelecer um mínimo, um patamar mínimo. E eu acredito que a reforma ela veio clarear isso, porque ela disse até onde que a negociação coletiva pode ir e o que ela não pode fazer. Então, eu acho que o sindicato, e aí, por exemplo, os trabalhadores que não são empregados, né, os trabalhadores de plataforma, eles, né, como tem lá na Bahia, acho que talvez seja o sindicato mais famoso, né, o André pode até falar disso, são os sindicatos dos trabalhadores, dos motoristas do Uber. Né, e eles fizeram aquela reivindicação, pararam naquele dia, tentaram se mobilizar contra assédio, contra assalto, questão de segurança, e o direito de eles serem informados para quem que eles iriam dirigir. Então, eu acho que é essa transformação que nós estamos vendo.
Just one, since I was cited, we are colleagues from the same hometown, yeah. But maybe in this point we might agree more than you think. Yeah. When I talked about the 2017 reform, I'm not saying that collective bargaining is not important and should have its space. I totally agree with that. Okay. That should have more space in Brazil. What I do not agree was the way that it was done, because I think we need an individual rights law, like they have also in Canada, probably they have in Argentina. You know, for workers, for example, that are not associated, if we go to a pluralist trade union system, we need this minimum rights law that regulate the Constitution. And so I think that the more democratic and transparent way to do this type of reform they did in 2017 was to rediscuss this labor code or employment law. Change the CLT, let's have an employment law. What is the employment law? Is the, the conditions for the worst job. The worst job will follow these minimal conditions. Above that, it's collective bargaining. But I disagree with the way that was done without rediscussing individual law and just putting a general clause inside and not even saying what was doing, because the government at the time would say, no, we're not taking out any right, but it was not really that. Anyhow.
All right, my turn now. And first of all, I'd like to thank ILERA and say everybody that me and Eduardo, we already bought our tickets to Lund next year. So we're gonna be there, ILERA World. We're gonna be in Sweden. Eleonora gonna be in Sweden also. Yeah, we all gonna be in Sweden. So we expect to meet you guys in person, everybody. Especially we are all from Brazil, but as a continental country, is for where I live to where Eduardo and Ana live is pretty much traveling from Toronto to Vancouver. So it's a lot. So we probably it's easy for us to meet in Sweden next year than to meet here in Brazil. Thank ILERA, Michael, Alessandro, everyone. Merci beaucoup, Alessandro. And muchas gracias a todos. Especially this guy, Leonardo, just watching us here, doesn't say anything.
That was my next question. So my next question is whether at this point let's name people, either Leonardo or Fernanda. want to say something or to interact with any of the topics that have been addressed in the session.
All right, and talking about your question, it's when you analyze, when you take account some phenomena about work, you have to put it on the map, because it has different consequences. When you speak from Canada, or when you speak in a, you can actually understand that people actually can afford to choose something. So they are in Uber because can afford as a option of, instead of not having a boss. When you take account in the south situation, which is pretty much here in Brazil, we have like a 15 million unemployed people here, 60 million people above poverty line. So it's like about can afford to choose having a boss and not having a boss. It's about having opportunity to have some small amount of money to buy food, to bring some food for their family at home. So this is what especially we all guys here, we all know each other, and when we meet on this, or ILERA, or Labor Law Research Network, or Cielo Laboral, or Labor, all of them, or in ILO, this is what I think it's most important to give this image. When we speak of this situation, this work relations here in Brazil, or in any of Latin America countries, especially South America, Central America as well, we have to take this into account. These people, this kind of a job, this kind of a work, is not because they choose to do this. It's pretty much because they have to do. It's what lasts for them. This is what they work. When some people say, oh, we have to protect this is not a critic. I also do. We have to protect this kind of people because they have to earn more. The law doesn't make you earn more. The law doesn't make you earn more money. What makes you earn more money is a combination of three requirements. First of all, the rarity, the rare. Your work must be rare. If you just do the thing you do, you can charge any money for your job. This is the first one, rare. Your job must be rare. How less people do what you do well, of course. And this is the first requirement. The second, but you have even if it's rare, if you are like an eye doctor of chickens, it doesn't matter if you are the only one eye doctor of chicken in the world, because it's not important job. And it must be rare and must be important, and the market must need this job. So these three requirements, they all together, they make your how you can charge for your job, you can charge for your work. This is not the point. The law doesn't make this you earn more for your job, but the law must give you like the minimum powder, the minimum floor of rights that make this job decent. Especially ILO have this decent work concept. This is what is important for these people. And I think I answered your question, right? And this is, you said something I just forget, but this is pretty much what I have to say about this. collective. It's not only these movements that are competing with unions, like Eduardo said. Eduardo said that this kind of other movements, church and people gathering, is competing with the unions. People doesn't need the unions anymore. What I study, especially Valerio Di Stefano from Europe, from Italy, he says that the main problem with the unions right now are the soft, they call it soft tools of organization. What the people say, they send a WhatsApp for everybody. It's like they make a group on the WhatsApp and they get together with like a boss or supervisor or something. And they go along in front of the company by themselves. They don't need someone to organize them. And the soft tools of organization, in my opinion, are the most the things that give most problem to the unions right now.
Muito bem. Obrigado, André. Agora, Lorenzo termina a sessão em português.
Você fala um pouquinho de português. Onde você aprendeu?
No, I have Google Translate below.
Bom, como quase
I'm Italian, so I cheat. Anyhow, so.
Obrigado, Alessandro, para ter sido presidente dessa sessão. Para todos os outros, convido vocês amanhã de continuar assistindo a programação. Vocês fazem parte do programa, então vocês são considerados como membros da Associação Canadense de Relações Industriais. Então, amanhã, às 14h de Toronto, vamos ter a...
3 daqui. No Brasil é 3.
Aí, dependendo de onde você está no Acre mesmo.
Não, no Acre não existe.
Em Cuiabá é as 2.
E se vocês estiverem Fernando de Noronha, ainda...
É outro para lá ainda.
Bom, qualquer coisa, se vocês quiserem, podem participar, uma assembleia aberta para dar um pouco de também o rumo que a associação vai continuar. É um grande prazer ter vocês aqui. Não sei se disse antes, eu sou organizador da conferência, junto com a Joanna Wester.
He's the boss, the big boss.
Não, Alessandro, you are the big boss. Bom, espero que vocês possam ter tempo de acompanhar. Amanhã também, se não, vocês daqui a um pouco, dê um tempinho para a gente, porque leva um tempinho para carregar tudo na internet, mas vamos ter tudo no YouTube da Associação Canadense de Relações Industriais. Então, você pode assistir todas as sessões que a gente fez, compartilhar com os estudantes, com colegas, como vocês queiram. A gente tem que terminar. We have to close right now. So, Michelle, we have to close.
Tell me about you. You're Brazilian.
De alma e de coração. Sou brasileiro.
Eu também.
Do mundo. Bom, tchau, gente.
Tchau.
Gente.
Obrigado.
Tchau, gente.
Se cuidem, take care.
Bye, bye, bye.
Tout le monde. Au revoir.
Grazie. Merci beaucoup.
Tchau.
Tchau. Muito obrigado, gente.